Starting the show off with long balls here on Morning Kickaround. This is the part of the show where we get to the headlines. Leading off, fresh in the inbox is CBS Sports to broadcast at least 40 regular season Liga MX games in English in the 2025-26 schedule, airing on CBS Sports Network and CBS Sports Golazo Network. Big addition, lots of soccer games coming to CBS now, eh?
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I recall ESPN doing Liga MX games in English. Man, that must have been a decade ago at this point, Rob. I remember checking in on that a little bit. This is pre learning Espanol for me, so I would have been, oh, look at here's Mexican soccer and it's happening in English, and that's more accessible for me. I don't remember ESPN coming out of that thinking it worked. I mean, they obviously didn't continue it. They didn't stick with it. Maybe that's also tied to some changes in the leadership at ESPN because, soccer is one of those sports on a network like ESPN where it kind of depends on who's in charge and whether they think the sport has big potential or not. And changes at the leadership level can affect this. Obviously, CBS Sports has just been eating up rights and doing all kinds of things. I mean, this has been a big period of spending. I believe there's that merger going through, a new owner, so there's possibilities that this is all tied into just exploding their portfolio. The names involved in terms of the broadcasting, according to the press release, Nico Cantor, who you obviously see a lot on Golazo and CBS Sports, Adrian Garcia Marquez, and Chris Whittingham, who is, pretty much everywhere these days, doing MLS, he's done Champions League for CBS. He is often paired, with Ray Hudson to do games over there. I think this could be another demographic that opens up to Mexican soccer. And I also think there's probably a lot of people that are, want to engage with Mexican football, feel like the language barrier is too much, the cultural barriers that exist there. But it could also be very much like Italian soccer, La Liga, Bundesliga kind of thing too, where because you're not engaging with it, if you only speak English, of course, because you're not engaging with it with the language, the lingua franca of the league, you may feel a remove. So I don't know how this goes. You were asking before the show, maybe what does this mean for MLS? So what does this mean for American soccer that's happening here? At this point, I don't know that there's a fundamental change that could happen from this. I think we're just kind of in this place where MLS has its own fights to own battles to engage in on getting people to pay attention to them. And I'm not sure that this will chip away too much at their market share because they still have so much work to do anyway.
I'm curious I like that there's an offering of it. I mean, more soccer available on television I enjoy, but from a business perspective, I'm curious how many people are speaking English but are curious in that. You feel like with Univision and all the different Spanish-speaking networks that cover the league pretty extensively already,
right.
How many folks are going to tune away from that to engage with the English version? I know there's split households where, some folks speak different multiple languages. I don't know if that assists that. In your household, would that interest you in any way?
I mean, so I don't, not to make it too much about me, but there's no Mexican football fans in my house except me. If you want to call me someone, a nominal Mexican football fan, and obviously that's partly because it's my job to cover soccer, and Mexican football has value in that. My kid, my 4-year-old, is speaking. He speaks Spanish as his primary language, but also understands English. I have a 17-year-old who could care less about soccer. And I have a wife who's kind of in the same boat. So I don't know, for me, I would probably default to the Spanish anyway to benefit me as a Spanish learner. But you're right. There are lots of households. I mean, one thing that I see a lot in my area is families where the older generation is speaking Spanish and the younger generation is responding in English. And there's clearly an understanding happening there, but there's not a speaking happening there. So I don't know how that would kind of play in families where a bilingual element is part of the story. If you are, let's say your family came from Mexico and your grandfather was a Club America fan, and maybe your mom or your dad follows Club America and they speak Spanish, but you struggle with the Spanish as a first or second generation Mexican American, maybe this is a way for you to connect with those elements of your family history. Like, oh, I can watch games now in English, understands what's happening without having to do the language barrier. So yeah, I mean, this Crispy Do, one of our MK Ultras, I feel like this is a play for people of Mexican descent that don't speak Spanish so much. I think it's probably beyond that. It's more broader, it's broader than that as a play. And I don't know how much this is costing Paramount. Probably it's nominal compared to the Champions League rights or whatever. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
is a license deal with Televisa Univision. So they could be trying this out, right? It's happening pretty quickly, right? This is being announced today, and their first game is tomorrow, Toluca and Pumas on CBS Sports Network. I mean,
Yeah,
was
that's a quick turnaround.
was it in the works and they just finally got it across the line? Did somebody at Paramount go, you know what we should do? Oh, I got a great idea. We got some guys that are bilingual. Why don't we do Mexican football and add that to our portfolio again as they sort of expand? So, I mean, what does Paramount have at this point, Rob? Like, it's a long list of stuff. They've got championship games, I think. They've got EFL Cup. They've got all this stuff.
Yeah, they've definitely scooped up a whole lot of properties, and I was wondering if this has any connection. We were talking about documentaries. There's a new one about Necaxa. I wonder
Yeah,
if there's any tie in
could be.
there. And then the
Could be.
whole Paramount merger thing, maybe once some sort of part of that deal with that merger went over the line, and then they were able to solidify this.
Yeah,
With it starting literally this weekend, that makes me to believe that it was contingent on the merger.
could be that. I will point out that, and this is my basic understanding of Mexican football television rights. And by the way, I also bring this in, KP. The issue for me is that Liga MX is the time the games are on. Many of them are on so late I can't watch. You look at the schedule, it is 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 9 p.m. This is Eastern time. 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 8 p.m. for a game in November. Also, again, for television rights, my understanding is that clubs are split again between different television outlets, different media companies in Mexico. So there's no Necaxa games on the schedule, probably because Necaxa or the games Necaxa plays in fall under a different company's rights and not
Mm.
Televisa Univision. So you're going to get a ton of Club America. You're going to get a bunch of Cruz Azul. You're going to get some Chivas. You're going to get some Monterrey. You're going to get some Pumas. But there's a lot of clubs that aren't here. It's a lot of repeats because of that, which I think is this is kind of specific to a subset of Mexican football fans if you already have a club.
Yeah, that's pretty fractured. If you just think about the fact that like the not every team can be on the same channel is kind of wild in its own right. But I was also thinking about just as far as viewing habits and like how would that affect MLS and whatnot. So I've said before in the show that most of the MLS that I watched was the random late night games. The kids have gone to bed and I get to watch that 10, 11 o'clock kickoff where maybe this, and then I haven't been able to do that obviously since the Apple deal with the new kickoff times for the most part. So maybe folks like myself might start to veer into this Liga MX with it being available at those times of the night.